Japan's Prime Minister has declared a nuclear emergency and has extended the evacuation order to anybody living within 10 kilometers of the reactor. His trade minister admitted that a radiation leak might occur at the Fukushima power plant, and his chief cabinet minister had this to say.
One of the nuclear reactors cannot cool down. Therefore, if the reactor continues to remain at high temperature, we are bracing for the worst scenario, and we are instructing nearby residents to evacuate.
So has a countdown to destruction begun? Joining me now is Richard Lester, head of the Department of Nuclear Science and Engineering at MIT, and Matthew Wall, the New York Times' nuclear expert. Matthew, if I may start with you,
yes.
What is your understanding of the latest situation at the Fukushima plant?
When you shut down a nuclear plant, you're continuing to produce heat. You have to have electricity to run the valves, run the pumps, and cool the place down. They lost not only the grid, which is down and will probably be down for some time to come, but apparently the tsunami wiped out the emergency diesel generators. They have batteries. The batteries won't last forever. They're rushing to find an alternate form of electricity. They don't have a lot of time to do this, but so far they don't have a lot of damage either. They're really racing to get things set up before the battery power is lost.
And how long do we have here? What is the hour-by-hour timescale that we could be looking at before there's some sort of inevitable meltdown?
At this point, a meltdown is not inevitable, but it's a little hard to say. Each of these plants is designed a little differently. The company has been issuing frequent updates, but it really hasn't said how long they can keep going in this stopgap method. What they're doing now is they have a pump that runs on steam, not electricity. As long as you're making heat, you have steam. The pump is dumping more coolant, more water into the reactor. That's slowly boiling off and being released, which gives you minor releases. And they need electricity to run the valves, to monitor the system, etc. They don't need a lot of electricity. They've got other reactors at the site. They've got other diesel generators. They need to get some form of generation running. I heard one report that they have an emergency generator they brought into the site. They have a good chance of getting this up and running before they have significant damage, but it's kind of nerve-wracking.
Professor Lester, if I can bring you in here, I mean, you obviously have seen many such situations in varying degrees. How serious do you think this one is in Japan?
Well, actually, there haven't been very many such situations of this degree of seriousness. I think this is a very serious situation. What the operators have got to try to do is to keep the fuel in the core covered with water as much as possible, because the water is what allows the fuel to cool down. If they can't keep the fuel covered, it will heat up, and at some point it will begin to release radioactivity. There is in fact some evidence that a small amount of a radioactivity release has already occurred. There are reports of iodine being measured both in the reactor and possibly also outside, which suggests that there's been at least some failure of the fuel. But it remains to be seen how long it will take, of course, to get more water in the core. The key thing is to get water in the core, and as Matt points out, at the moment they're very limited in their ability to do that because of the loss of the diesel generators.
Matthew Wall, let me come back to you.
Yes.
If the doomsday scenario does occur and we see a meltdown with radiation, what will that do to the environment in Japan, and what does it mean for nuclear plants in America, for example, if a similar thing was to happen here?
Well, there's the beginnings of a renaissance in nuclear construction all over Asia and to some extent in the United States. And this is all premised on the existing plants running well. If there's a major incident that is not good for the nuclear construction business, the plants that are running in this country will probably continue to run without difficulty. I don't know what effect it will have. One of the complications is after an earthquake, it's hard to move people. It's harder to move in all the problems you need, all the equipment you need.
Matthew Wall, Professor Lester, but thank you both very much for your time. We just have to wait and see what happens in that plant, and it's a very worrying time for Japan and the world. What if the unthinkable was to happen here in America? Is this country prepared for such disaster? I'll ask the mayor of Los Angeles next.